Well, good morning, Savannah. Good morning, around the world. This is the vulnerable community this morning, brought to you by A. Philip Randolph Institute Savannah chapter. We're here this morning to give you a wealth of information and bring you information that you have not heard before and enlighten you on different subjects that are going on around our area. So this morning we have with us a young lady who is with an organization that's helping our young kids. Her name is Coco Papy, and we're going to bring Coco on and let her introduce herself. And when Coco introduces herself, then we're going to let her talk just a little bit about the organization called Deep, here right here in Chatham County. So Coco, take yourself off of mute and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Jerome. Always delighted to be on here and appreciative of the work that both you and Mr. Hall are doing in the community. So my name is Coco Papy. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Communications at Deep Center in Savannah, Georgia. We are an organization that works with both youth and adults now. In the school district, in neighborhoods, and also in the justice system. And so we started in 2008, started as a very simple after-school writing program. And since then, we've sort of evolved into a few different lanes of work, including direct services, narrative change, and systems change. And so people might recognize us from the work that we've done in the school system, but we also work within juvenile court. We work with Gateway, we work with Park Place, we also work with educators and trying to ensure that they have restorative options so that they can thrive in the classroom. And we also do advocacy work. So we have community organizers who are in and out of this community, and we work at both the local level and also at the state level for policy reform.
Okay. I have personally been involved with some of your programs, but y'all not you, but the program itself had a very interesting program going on, and I'm just wondering, is it still going on where y'all let the students write their own books?
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So it's I would say since 2018 we've grown a lot, right? And then we had the pandemic, which was interesting to grow through. But I think most people recognize us from the Young Author Project, which is the program that you're talking about. And that's where we're working with middle schoolers, but also high schoolers to help them kind of find their authentic voice, right? So it's really focused on storytelling. It's focused on sort of authentic writing, on just kind of getting out what it is that you have inside you on paper so that you can share with your community and, just kind of tell your story. So we have that program. But we also, we have 12 different programs now, right? And they range all the way from the Young Author Project, which is that introductory program, to community organizing. So in our youth division, we have Young Author Project. We have Block by Block, which works with high school students and does a lot of asset mapping, organizing. They focus on music and community garden and art making. We also have SLAM, which is our spoken word team, the action research team, which is sort of like our baby policy team. We have Drop-In, which is a relatively new program, and that is where we're working with systems impacted youth and some more flexible programming. And so we have sites at Gateway Behavioral Health, Park Place, Park on the east side, and the Youth Detention Center. And then last but not least, for our youth programming, we have REP, which is our program that we run with juvenile court, which is our court-involved youth. And then we have our adult programming, which ranges from Healing Schools, which is our program that we do within Savannah High and building bridges. We also have the Writing Project, which works with educators all across the community. And then we have policy and organizing. So we've been busy.
Yeah, y'all have grown tremendously since I started with y'all.
Yeah.
Stopped talking with y'all. I tell you what, though, uh, you had an organizer over there that we used to we were very close. But y'all had a program, and you may have mentioned it, so correct me.
Mhm.
But y'all had a program where y'all working with troubled youth too, right?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing, right? So, we work with a lot of young people who are experiencing all sorts of things, right? So we have our young folks who are, maybe just grappling to find themselves, but they are in a relatively stable family situation or a relatively stable home situation. And we work with youth who are either in the foster system or who are court involved or have been formally incarcerated, right? So we work with a whole spectrum of youth. And for us, I think what feels really important is reminding our young people of like their ultimate, their inherent dignity and their autonomy, and just making sure that they get the resources that they need. And no matter what their situation is, we're going to find a pathway forward for them.
Great, great, great. I like the concept of deep because it's not very many organizations that we have that get that deeply involved with our youth. Uh, what brought about deep? Can you tell us a little bit about what brought about deep?
Yeah. So Deep's origins feel so very different from like who we are now. So it started as an after school writing program at Frank Callan. It was basically put together by something called a Weave a Dream grant, which is available through the City of Savannah's Cultural Affairs Commission. You get $3,000 to run a program, right? And it's a relatively easy grant application. It's for organizations that are really just starting out. And the whole idea is to get your idea off the ground. And so it really just started out as a very simple after school writing project. And one of the things that we found as we evolved over the years was that was great, but it was also I think there was a little bit of a tone of sort of like white saviorism, right? Like we're working with these kids, and these kids, we got to save these kids, we got to save these kids. And, I think our philosophy now is like our young people can save themselves, right? We just have to give them the tools to do so. And so, I don't think there's anything sort of wrong with how we started. I do appreciate the fact that we've grown a lot and that we're sort of always reevaluating the way we approach this work. And also like making sure that we're learning from other organizations in this community. I think, for me, what feels very true is that there are so many folks in this community doing good work, right? So I think like one, I always hear you talking about the labor apprenticeship program for young people, and I think that's something we've sent a lot of young folks from Rep over into. But then you have, Save Our Youth with Latasha Barnes. You have Savannah Youth City with Beverly Trotter. You have League of Brawn. You have Movement Matters. You have, there's just all these folks in this community who are showing up, I think, in the way that they can and ensuring that young people are able to thrive. And I love that about Savannah.
Well, and with all these organizations, at one point we're going to have a round table.
Yeah, I agree. Let's have a roundtable.
Yeah, we need to have a round table so we can kind of round out the program, because everybody's doing a little something, but nobody knows what the other one's doing completely. So I think we need to have a round table about that too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I hear that Savannah is very siloed, right? I think that's something that you hear a lot when you start working in this community, and I agree with it. But I don't think I think it's siloed because for the most part, most of the folks that I know have their heads down and are doing the work, right? And again, I think that's the thing that I really appreciate about this community. It makes me proud to be from here, to come back here. is that folks really have their head to the grindstone and are just trying to make something happen, right? And they're usually doing it with, not enough resources, or, burning the candle on both ends. I think I both, heard you and Mr. Hall talking about, being tired before this podcast, and it's because you're both working, right? And, I just, that's not to say that we don't need resources, or, maybe a little bit more bandwidth, but I think it really speaks to the character of a lot of folks who live here in Savannah, who want a more just and equitable community, right? And they're willing to do what they need to do to make that happen.
Right. And a lot of what we do, when I say we, I'm talking about the whole concept of working with the youth.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what we get from, like you say, from the city, the state, and the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have to work and we have certain limitations that we have to go through, you're right. We have to stay on the grinding stone, because you have to make sure that everything is in proper order, to make sure that the concept is completed. But what are some of the programs that y'all got going on that the people need to know about that's happening now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of our youth programs have been in session probably since about the beginning of October, right? And so those are year-long programs. So if you're a parent or a guardian, or you just, you love a young person, right? And you're looking for an activity for a young person to do, we have this really great program called Drop In. And the whole idea is that we recognize that lots of our young people don't have transportation. A lot of our young people don't have regular schedules. They have all sorts of commitments. They have time constraints. And they also just might not be interested in doing the same thing for an entire year or 12 weeks. And so we created this program called Drop In, and it takes place at Park Place Outreach, Park on Pennsylvania Avenue on the east side, Gateway Behavioral Health Clubhouse, and the Youth Detention Center. And so the whole idea is we're trying to bring programs and activities that young people are saying, this is the thing that I'm interested in, that we wouldn't be able to technically offer in like a lot of our spaces. So like one of the things that we do is like we do hair braiding, we do tattooing, like nothing permanent, of course, but like tattooing. We do cooking classes, we do yoga. So it's about young people identifying the thing that they're interested in but might not have the capacity to do in their regular lives, and ensuring it's accessible as possible to them. So that's open to all young people, right? And also too, if like you're a young person in Savannah who's like trying to make their way here, and you teach yoga, or you're an artist, or you're a writer, like I would encourage you to reach out to us. We're always looking for teaching artists to come in and work with our young people. And I would also say, if you don't see yourself as like a traditional artist, which like, I don't even know what that is at this point. But if you're someone who's like, well, I do landscaping and that's my art, right? Like we would encourage you to come in, because our young people are doing community gardens, right? And they want to hear from someone who's basically made a way for themselves in this world by their art being landscaping, right? So the whole idea is opening up this idea of like what art is, what creative expression is, and like also like how it can be a workforce development issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you said the cooking, you got space in that class for me?
Yeah, well, totally. Everyone is welcome, right? We'd be happy to have you there.
No, I'm just kidding. I had to learn to cook the hard way.
Yeah. The other thing too is we do like I think we're identified as like a youth serving organization, right? And we very much are, but we recognize that like youth don't exist in a vacuum. They have families, they have people in their neighborhoods that they care about. And they eventually become adults, right? And so we're also doing a lot of adult programming. So we work with educators within the school district to help them combat burnout, to help them kind of combat I would say, the political warfare that they find themselves in right now, right? When we are passing laws that are outlawing Black history or LGBTQ issues being taught in the classroom. And we're also ensuring that they are armed with restorative practices that are based in restorative justice so that we're not inadvertently like kicking kids out of the classroom, right? We also, another big vein of our work is we work with justice-involved citizens, right? Justice-impacted or justice-involved citizens. So one of the things that I feel super proud about right now is we're running an expungement clinic with DeVetter Law, Filling the Gaps, and a few other groups. And so the whole idea is in Georgia, if you know, 1 in 3 people in Georgia has a record. So that's almost like half the state, right? So like the question isn't like, do you know someone with a record? It's who do you know? And so for us, being able to set up this clinic to be able to walk through people and help them get their record clean so that they can access employment and housing, and just like, you know, have the fresh start they deserve, right? Like you have, you know, you've done the thing you needed to do. We shouldn't have to pay the price for that forever. So ensuring that someone can thrive, right, in their current conditions. And so we can help with felony early termination of felony probation. We also do rights restoration work. So if you're trying to have your right to vote restored, we can help you with that. And then also just like resource gathering. So.
Yeah, you told me something I didn't know you were doing then.
Yeah.
Because we have so many young men in our program that's been in our programs come to us that we couldn't help because they had records, you know. Yeah. And it's painful to think about how many of our youth do something that's foolish, yeah, but it follows them the rest of their life. And expungement is the way for them to go to it and get this cleared up off their record. Because yeah, building futures, we have people come to us, but we can't do anything with them because they have the record. Because we do a lot of government programs, yeah, and our people work on government projects, and the government say, "Well, you can't come on our project with a record." Yeah.
Well, you know, none of us are the worst thing we've ever done, right? And I think we're really staunch believers in that. That's even right. Even when it's hard, right? And I think like it's easy to say something like that, and it's harder to embody those values when it challenges, you know, when it challenges you. But for the most part in Georgia, you know, you are able, there are certain offenses, most misdemeanors, and then a few different types of felonies you can have expunged. And so for us, we are always happy to basically walk through the process with someone. We also offer advocates. So you walk into the expungement clinic, you sit down with a lawyer who sort of temporarily represents you in that moment while you're going through the process. And then you can get assigned an advocate. And that could be like myself or someone from Filling the Gaps or just one of the other many like amazing volunteers we have. And the whole idea is that's a person that you can call and say, you know, I feel like I'm getting the runaround from this person, or, you know, I'm kind of scared to call. Like, what if I get in trouble? And so, you know, you then have us who is like, I enjoy being professionally annoying for a living. So like, let me call and like advocate, you know, and try and get this thing moving.
Okay. We need to take a quick break for a commercial, but we'll be right back. Hold your thoughts. Coco, we're coming back at you.
Cool. Thank y'all.
All right. right, we're right back with you, Coco. With the expungement program, uh, what's the age limit that y'all take in the expungement program over there?
Yeah, so we don't do juvenile expungement, and the reason we don't do that is because for young people who enter the court system, their records are for the most part sealed, right? As long as it's not I would say one of the sevens, right, which are these a category of offenses that usually land young people in adult court, right, which is a whole other conversation I'm happy to have about why we should not be doing that. But in the state of Georgia, the age of being a legal adult is 17, which again is a whole other conversation I'm happy to have about why that should not be the case. But starting from 17 and basically on, we are more than happy to work with you on your situation. And again, there are some charges that there aren't things that we can do, but we can kind of figure out a pathway forward to you to where you can get resources, or what is the best path forward for you look like, right? Ultimately, like what the goal is to ensure that people can thrive, right? You made a mistake, okay, but that mistake does not define you, and we want to be a group of folks who are ensuring that you have the ability to thrive.
And one of the other things that a lot of our young adults and people who have been in the system don't realize is the fact that once you've paid your price and you paid your dues to society, that you are eligible to vote again.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them under the vote. Well, I did this, and they told me I got a record, so I can't vote. No. If you paid your debt, your dues to society, did your time, then you can vote.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't know that, right? And I think especially now, at least looking at the state of Florida and what they've done, passing this bill that essentially said, it doesn't matter if you have a felony, you can still vote, and then going and rearresting all those folks, right? I can understand why people are scared. But you're absolutely right. If you have a felony offense, you can restore your right to vote, right? But one of the things that we definitely find with folks is that when they get out, immediately like how, I need a job, I need a place to live, I need to be able to pay my bills and pay, my probation or parole fee every month, right? I don't want to go back. And
That's
so
right.
for us, we find that, the restoring the right to vote, if that is what a person needs, is usually pretty low on the list. And ensuring that people have what they need to be stable sort of takes priority, right? And so, again, like thinking about the groups in Savannah that are doing some really good work, I think, you have folks like the Offender Alumni Association or Filling the Gaps, these groups that are ensuring that when folks exit the carceral system, that they have what they need to thrive, right? We kind of have this real ridiculous system where we put someone away and then they come out and we say, okay, now go be a good citizen, except that we make it absolutely impossible for them to go be a good citizen, right? How of it makes sense to me.
Well, when you put a person on the street, tell them to go make money, and especially a young person, and they don't have nothing else to do, what do you expect them to? What do they expect them to do? To go back into the system again, and it's like a revolving door if it keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes groups like yours, mine, and everybody else's out here to try to stop that revolving door. I applaud y'all because it has been proven that at the third grade level, they start rating kids and having them labeled as prison bound.
Yeah.
And there has to be something that we can do to change that, because
Yeah.
it's terrible that a third grader hadn't even started life yet, but you're labeling them prison bound.
Yeah. Completely agree.
But with the your work with Park Place and other organizations, and I have to tell everybody, 'cause I know you probably gonna beat me up later, but you helped me start building futures.
No, I would not want to ever take credit for that. That was your own. That is your own ambition and
I
gumption,
didn't know how to
right?
put it on paper. You had to put it on the paper for me, and I appreciated that. I always appreciate that. But building futures, we've come a long way. We've got some success stories that really going. In fact, I had a conversation with one young man last night. He says, "Where I'm at, it's cold." He's up in he's up in Illinois. He's from down here. He says, I'm not staying up here. I'm coming home."
That's amazing. I relate to that struggle. As a former Southerner in the North, I relate to that. But no, I mean, like, I think like that's what we all want, right? I think, sometimes we talk a lot about the barriers that we face or that we see folks facing or that we're facing, right? And we have to remember those success stories, right? The people who get out and say, man, the small thing made such a huge difference in my life. And like that you were able to do that and fulfill that is huge, right? And it may not feel huge, but it is huge.
It is. And when you have an idea, sometimes if you talk to somebody, because a lot of our young kids have ideas in their head, but they're scared to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And you can give them that ounce of hope by talking to them and drawing it out of them or what the idea is, then maybe they can help create something bigger than what they thought they were.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what y'all do at Deep.
Yeah. I mean, I think we just, ultimately at the end of the day, we're just trying to, again, like we're trying to give young people the tools they need to thrive, right? But young people and adults, right? Because I think it's really easy to also be an adult, and I've experienced the word no too much or been judged for doing something. And that can feel very isolating. It's isolating as a young person. It's definitely isolating as an adult. And so just having a space where someone's saying, that's really interesting. I never knew that was possible. Tell me more.
Right. I have found it when you work with young folk that it gives you a certain energy
Mm-hmm.
when you start working with them. You have a certain energy that builds that it's just undescribable sometimes because the energy that they have rubs off on you because you're looking at what they're doing and they're looking at what you're doing, and it just like it clashes sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I love that young people challenge me, right? I think, there's sort of like the generational pattern, right, of becoming the older generation and being like, these young people, they don't understand this, and this. But I really love how young people challenge me. They challenge me to think differently about things, to potentially revisit some of my biases. I think that challenge is great, right? For what young people might not have in the experience that like older folks have, they have in idealism and the hope that things can be different. And I love that about young people. We should all have young people challenging us.
They always do. I love the question. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I love the question because a lot of times they'll ask you a question that you have to go back and think for yourself. I better go back and research this.
Yeah.
Because they can ask you some real hard questions sometimes. But besides that, what else is Deep doing?
Yeah, totally. So we have a community organizing program, and that is run by Omari Fox. I think y'all have met a few times. But the whole idea is working with folks on the ground to connect their issues to what is happening both at the state and local level, you know, around public policy. And so he's doing some really great work. He facilitated a week of power last week. And the whole idea is, you know, one of the sessions we had was a restorative circle, right? And training local organizers or change makers, however you identify yourself, how to do restorative justice and how to embody those principles in your work, because it's really hard, right? It's really hard. I think we tend to repeat sometimes the things that we're against, right? And so for us, it's making sure that, one, that we can show up as best as we can, but two, that when we are in community, we're not inadvertently doing harm to one another. You know, and we're extending grace and empathy in a boundaried way to ensure that, like, we can all show up as best we can. And then this weekend we have an unconference, which is really exciting. So if you had asked me what is an unconference, I would have been like, I don't actually know what that is. But the whole idea is that conferences are pretty boring. I think we've all been to a conference that we certainly did not want to go to. And so this weekend, our Healing Schools team and Georgia Southern School of Education are hosting a one-day event where Omkari Williams, who's originally from Savannah and has recently published a book on activism, is going to come and be sort of the keynote speaker. But it's going to be trying to solve issues that are commonly found inside school buildings, and how we deal with those on the ground level up, right? So I think sometimes people think, go to your school board, go to your superintendent, and that's good. We should absolutely do that. But it's also, what can we be doing to sort of drive things from the ground up, right? How can teachers be leading sort of policy change? How can teachers be leading cultural change? How can young people and students be doing that?
Okay. Now, with your unconference, you said that's going to take place this weekend?
It's taking place this weekend. I'd be happy to send you some information on that.
Okay. Well, can you give us some time on information on that
So
while we're on the air?
It's going to be at the Georgia Southern Armstrong campus. And it'll take place from about 9 to 2. And so, again, we'll have Omkari Williams as a keynote speaker, but we'll have different sessions, including, you know, sessions for multilingual learners. So if English is not your first language, we'll have a session on restorative practices in the classroom. So again, like keeping kids in the classroom, not kicking them out. We're going to have a workshop on sort of basically how to teach in a time where they're outlawing certain styles of teaching, right? So like, how do you teach Black history if the state government is saying you can't teach this certain type of Black history, right? So trying to figure out ways to support educators to teach what they are supposed to be teaching.
Well, there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
And I can guarantee you that sooner or later we'll have the way.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing that times have gotten to the place where teachers can't teach what they should be teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we had books we had to take home that was so heavy. They talking about backpacks. Now we had to tote them in our hand. So I know what it was to tote books. And,
yeah. I mean, history is dangerous, right? You know, if we start looking at history, we'll start looking at the present and being like, well, what are we repeating here, right? And again, like, there's generations of people who have been fighting, you know, these battles, right? And now we have young people who are more eager than ever to take up these fights, and that is threatening. And so, you know, what do people do? They try and erase, you know, history. And so just ensuring that, you know, there's resistance to that, and that people know what has happened, you know, is the best thing that we can do right now.
Right. So many of our people fought to get to where we are today to learn, so our youth could learn, or we could have an education, we could have the opportunity to go out and vote.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us, so many of our people lost their lives,
Yeah.
been arrested, and this degraded. But now we have to, they want to erase that part of history
Mm-hmm.
like it never happened. And the one thing that I found out in this short lifetime of mine is that history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And in the repetition, it usually gets a little bit worse.
Yes. Yes.
Unfortunately, it gets a little bit worse. And when what they saw the last time around would be worse than what it is this time around.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to deal with the situations at hand. I've um I've been looking at our political situations around the country. We're in utter chaos, and our youth don't know anything, know what to do with it,
Yeah.
and they rely on us to give them the information that they should have.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be so careful in how we part information to them, because if we do it in the wrong way, we can turn the light out instead of turning the light on.
Yeah.
But let's take one more minute for another break, and you get you a drink of water, because I know you've been talking a lot. But we'll be right back in just a second, okay? Okay, we are back again with Coco Papy, one of the brightest young women in Savannah that I know, and she
Stubborn.
has.
Maybe not smart. My mom always said, if you're going to be brave, you better be dumb. So I relate to that.
Coco, we've been talking about the different programs you've been in, you're dealing with, your partnering with. Can you give some of the locations so that let people know how to get there and what they're and how to get some of the youth involved in your program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to get involved with us is, I'm happy to give out my phone number and our contact information. Just shoot us an email, shoot me a text. Again, I think we're always looking to find ways to get people involved, whether you're an adult, but especially if you're a young person. If you are an adult or a parent or a guardian or a young person, who's interested in attending one of our drop-in programs. So we have locations at Park Place Outreach. We have a location at Park off of Pennsylvania Avenue, right by Savannah High. We have a location at Gateway Clubhouse, and we have this location is not necessarily open to the public, but we have a location inside the YDC where we're working with incarcerated young people. But for the locations that are open and available, those meet pretty much every week, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so what I can do after this is I can send over a flyer with all that information. It's after school, so it's from 5:30 on. And again, it's flexible programming. We really want to tailor it to whatever it is that a young person is curious about doing and wants to explore. So come with ideas and come with openness and, tell us what we can be doing.
Okay. Now, is there a process
For signing up for drop-in?
For someone that wanted to volunteer to help y'all?
Yeah, so it depends on what program you want to be involved in. So if you want to be a writing fellow who works within the school district, we have an application for that. We do offer stipends, right? So their paid opportunities. And then we do a background check through the school district, through Operation Beacon, I think is the volunteer background check. If you are wanting to organize with us or do public policy and advocacy with us, just show up, right? We will work with everyone where they're at. And the biggest thing is, one, how can we lift up what's already being done and just throw our weight behind that and support it? And two, how can we also meet people where they're at, right? I think a lot of times we run into folks who are like, I've identified a problem, but I don't even know where to begin. And so for us, it's sort of finding all the steps in between from, here's how you could contact, your city council person, right? And this is how you do that, to, here's a bill that they're going to file at the state, the General Assembly, and this is how you advocate for that. So, but we also do things like mutual aid and resource gathering and, teaching people how to embody sort of restorative practices so that they can take care of themselves and their community.
Okay. That is interesting. A lot of people, when they see the program, they ask, well, how do you get involved? And that's one of the reasons why I asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a lot of seniors out here that right now that has nothing to do.
Yeah.
And they would love to have something to do. I found it a few years ago in my aging process that although I'm getting older, I still have some usefulness left, but I have to take that part of my youthfulness and help bring along somebody that's younger than me.
Yeah.
So we have to keep the process going by training somebody younger than us, because sooner or later we're going to be out of the way, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And we want people to replace us, right? Like, I don't want to be in this position forever. I shouldn't. And so having young people that we're training up to replace us is huge. But I think also to your point about, the elders in our community still having lots to offer, right? And the wisdom that comes along with that, and how hard it can be to have intergenerational space sometimes. I think one of the great things that Omari has done is he set up these senior writing workshops at Moses Jackson that are kind of modeled a little bit after the programs we do in the middle schools. And it's working with folks, who have been in West Savannah all their life to capture those stories, right? And a lot of that was inspired by Chalani, who wrote Crack Teeth, by the work that she's done and how he's sort of looking to carry that on and put his own spin on it. But yeah, I mean, it's having intergenerational space is powerful.
That's right. Oh, I think that with programs like Deep, our kids get a head start on life. You know, we want to offer something, but a lot of times we offering the wrong thing. And now I won't say the wrong thing. Let me rephrase that. We offering it in the wrong way. And I applaud y'all for taking the time to put the program together so that the kids could, our youth can get what they really need and be able to nurture them on.
Yeah. But we're not, I'll say this, there's lots of stuff that we are not doing that other folks in this community are doing, right? Again, I think I listed off some organizations at the top. TIP, Talented Individuals with Power, Savannah East City, Save Our Youth, League of Brawn, UMA, who's run by Trey. You know, there's all these folks in this community who are doing really amazing work. And I think if there's like an offering that I can make is that, you know, Deep has the position of being a little bit of a bigger organization these days, which is great, right? And so however we can be working with other organizations in this community, and giving them the resources so that they can also be doing this work, so that we can be supporting that work. We definitely are interested and encourage folks to reach out to do it. You know, one of the things we're doing right now with TIP is we're doing a research project on the experiences of formerly incarcerated youth. And we're doing that by training formerly incarcerated youth to interview each other, right? They don't want me to interview them, and that's fine, right? Like, I'm probably not going to get the information that they're going to share with young people who have shared a similar experience with them. And we're going to pay them to do that, right? And so we really, really credit TIP with being able to help us make this happen, right? Because those are the young people TIP are working with. So I would say if you're a youth serving organization in Chatham County and you're interested in working with us, like, reach out and let's figure something out so we can get y'all paid, and we can work towards the same goal.
Right. That's great. That's what I'm talking about. You know, y'all are using innovative ideas that a lot of people don't even think about. And that's what we have to do. We have to think.
Yeah.
We have to think ahead of the game, and we have to think deep. You know, and that's a logic I've been using for a long time. You got to think real deep. You can't look at something and just look at it for face value. You've got to go deeper than what it really is, and that's why I wanted to have you on the program, because you've gone deeper than I thought y'all were way deeper than I thought you were.
We're trying, just like everyone else. We're trying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the fact that you're trying is deep enough, because who out here is not trying? That's the thing. You know, we have the resources are here, but we don't use them. Because who thought 6, 7 years? So what was it, about 7 years ago now, that Building Futures would have got off the ground?
Yeah, and look at the work that y'all are doing now.
Yeah, so you know, we got to keep going. We've been able to go into the high schools and get some kids out of high school and put them on a very lucrative career. And now you've got your program. We need to be tapping into your program to find out what youth that y'all have that's coming out, that's not going to college, that we can put them in the right career and get them on a lucrative career.
Yeah, it feels like. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm finished.
I was going to say, it feels like there's a conversation overdue to have with you and potentially Julius Campbell to talk about, you know, how we can bring the work that you're doing into our rep space, right? Because we're talking about young people who are like, I'm not going to go to college, right? And that's okay that all young people aren't going to go to college, right? Like, we should just embrace that. There's tons of other paths to success. And I think, you know, your organization is showing that, you know, look at this. This is a pathway to success, and having our young people being able to experience that.
That is so true. You know, when this young man comes home, I'd like to have him. I am not going to but I'm going to get him to talk with some of the youth
Mm-hmm.
about the program, because he is an electrician, and he's making a very lucrative career.
Yeah.
And what he did, his experience, and he's like, what, 24, maybe he ain't 25 yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already he's making six figures, and
making more than me.
he's making more than me.
And good for him.
But you know, it's a thing that we can't sit back because we can't do it. Push somebody to go farther than we have.
Yeah.
And that's what our goal is, to push and make our young folk a whole lot more successful than we were.
I agree. I think that is the legacy we need to leave behind.
Yeah. We got about 6 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna give you 3 of them 6 to do a wrap up of your program.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the biggest thing is I'm not going to go back into all that we do. I think the biggest thing I'd love to leave people with is the encouragement that, like, we would love to partner with you, right? Again, I am always in awe of the people who exist in our community who are doing all these different things, often as a labor of love, right? You know, and for us at Deep, we want to be able to support those efforts in the way that we can and partner, right? And really lift up good work that's being done in a way that we can. And so if you have a program, if you're doing something in this community, like, reach out to us, right? We definitely are interested in working with you, you know, and are just really eager to kind of figure out, like, what do we do next? And then I think the last thing is we're sort of redefining, like, what we do with the next, like, 5 to 10 years. I'm really excited that we have a new executive director. Her name's Dr. Holly Whitfield. If you haven't met her yet, she's fantastic. I think she's exactly the leader we need in this moment. You know, and back in 2018, we made the really intentional decision that we could no longer hold up young people for the good that they were doing if we weren't going to deal with the barriers that they were running into, which is why we moved into systems change work and why we started working with adults. You know, and now we're at this place where we have new leadership and we're looking at the next 5 to 10 years and thinking, okay, what are we going to do next? And we haven't really answered that yet. But what we do know is sustaining what we are doing to ensure that we can fulfill our promises to this community and keep showing up in the way that we can is number one, first and foremost. So
we appreciate all that. Coco, we appreciate you being on the program with us this morning on the podcast. We look forward to you meeting your new director, and I know we're going to run into you somewhere down the line.
I'm sure. Thank you for having me.
Out there,
What now? Go ahead. Oh, no, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I'm just sorry it took so long. It is that time of year.
No problem. But to everyone out there, remember to go to the polls and vote.
Yes.
Voting is your voice. Go to the polls and vote. Whatever you do, go to the polls and vote. You've got from now, the polls are open now until November 7th. Go and cast your ballot. We can't tell you who to vote for, but we can ask you to go vote. So please take the time to go to the polls and vote and let your voice be heard, and then hold your candidates accountable. Yeah. We thank you for being with us this morning on the Vulnerable Community. This is Jerome Irwin, president of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and we look forward to seeing y'all in 2 weeks. We won't be here next week because of the elections. We'll be in the streets, putting our feet on the ground. But we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Y'all have a blessed day and a blessed week. Talk to you later, Coco. See you later, darling. Bye.
I like that.